This is our group guest, is Ossia. How do you guys pronounce it?
Ossia.
Okay, because I say Ossia. Am I saying it wrong?
Are we saying it wrong? I don't know. Are we saying it wrong?
I originally thought it was Ossia.
Ossia, like an Ossia title to an opera. Is that, like 𝗖cie𝗳𝗳𝗲𝗲
I might be saying it in Spanish because the way you guys say it, I see it with like an accent, like
Oh, I get it. Well, I've just been pronouncing it the Southern way, which is like Ossia, like see ya at the opera house, Like
my mom calls it Ossia. So
okay.
We were hoping to create like this, conversation about the name and the brand.
Yeah.
It's working well, right?
Great. So to start, well, I'm glad everyone has their coffee. Is everyone drinking coffee or other things?
Definitely coffee.
Yes, I have coffee. A big glass.
Good. Yeah. Well, I have my happy avocado mug.
Cute.
I have a lot of mugs to choose from. Okay, so to start, I want one of you, we can just take turns, to introduce what Ossia is, because you're probably obviously going to introduce it better than me. What is it? How do you define it? And what have you been doing so far?
Yeah, I'll take it if you don't mind. So Ossia is a musical term, right? And so you can take an Ossia passage, like you can have the melody printed, and then the Ossia has the high notes in it and everything. And so we were hoping to use the inspiration from that to develop an alternate experience with opera that people can have. There's this conscripted version of what is accepted and what people do in the opera house. And we think that opera deserves more than that. And so we wanted to build this digital ecosystem around opera and to showcase how it interacts with our everyday lives. That's why we call it op culture, which of course is a pop culture reference, but we wanted to build op culture, and especially for, it's for everybody, but especially for people our age. We grew up with the internet, and these are reference points that are familiar to us, YouTube videos, and that's the first thing I do if I don't know anything about something. I Google it. And so often with opera, you have to go down, 12 search results to even find anything about opera. And so we were working to just make it visible and fun and informative and open. And just I don't think that space really exists in a cultural way. I mean, of course, there's the 360 of opera, which is so great on social media. There's, of course, the Opera Wire, which is so great for news and stuff like that. And there's some little offshoots. I mean, not offshoots, but there's Parterre Box. There's things like that. But we wanted to try to fence in a whole huge group of digital online fun, informative, we're all weirdos, and we wanted to celebrate that in a way that other people can see and interact with easily.
And just sort of mirror the way that, like, what's great about the way that the singer community interacts with each other usually is sort of the way that we talk about stuff, because it's never like the prim polished version that they like you to give at events. Like, it's more like, oh, I watched this 10 seconds of a YouTube video 12 times last night. It's those weird interactions that are a little more normal to how we all interact with each other within the operatic community as well. And I think that's one of the most fun parts of it, is it sort of feels like a bigger friendship community that we're building out. So
100%. That was very much my reaction. I mean, I just feel like it's so relatable. It's very informative for people who might be new to the opera world, the opera community, who are curious. But I also feel like it's so relatable because as a every music major ever has at some point sat on a lounge with other music majors and watched YouTube videos.
For sure.
I personally have an image of in grad school, just watching Florence Foster.
Yeah, totally.
And I just thought of that immediately. I was like, oh, they're classier than me. But yeah, so exactly. I love that, you know, you speak to the very niche kind of people that we are, but also you're making it very approachable to people who might be curious about opera, because it's exactly that. What we do in a way has to be very polished and elegant, but it doesn't mean, I mean, we're all people living in the current world. So
Yeah.
obviously when we're having conversations, it's not separate. And this is something you mentioned on the interview with Opera Box Score. It was like, I was listening to that and it's like, yes, yes. But I also noticed on your website that you're building this as a broader media company, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, who wants to take that one? I will.
Or do you want to take it? Are we going to fight over it? You want to thumb wrestle? Basically, the idea, like kind of what we were talking about earlier about wanting to really make this inclusive of and reflective of the community. Part of that is going to be us continuing to do what we're already doing, which is just putting more faces in front of the camera to do the things that already exist. And in our broader worldview and hope for what's coming, we'd like to partner with more people to be creating more experiences, whether that be live, whether it be archived digitally, whether it be digital program book style things where you can get to know the artist, anything like that. Those are the things we have that we're sort of working on at the moment. That's obviously going to progress, because at this moment, what we're seeing a lot of is the way that we do this changing on a day-to-day basis. So what we really hope is that we can just stay intertwined in how it's starting to grow and make it a really artist-centric view of whatever is being produced around us. I'm sure I just butchered all that, so if anybody wants to jump in, go for
That
it.
makes sense to me.
I will say that production company is an interesting thing because, you know, I think the thing that we're really interested in is how opera engages with the form of the internet and how it can, through its engagement with the internet, service a new audience, service like a generation, our generation, Gen Z, you know, people that have grown up with the internet or are fluent in the kind of, you know, internet idiom. How it can sort of connect to that and keep building the opera audience, which I think it's no secret, you know, has an issue with sort of self-sustaining that regeneration thing. You know, it's very good at being one thing that it's been for a long time. It's hard to change, and it's hard to you know, get over the hump of treating it less preciously and like just being willing to, you know, ownership and pull it apart and meme it and make it, you know, make it bounce around in the way that so many things in culture do naturally when an audience can love it actively and hold it and share it in a personal way. And I think like the production company part is like an interesting facet of it because, you know, what we're not interested in necessarily being is just a place to help produce really beautiful videos. You know, I think there's a lot of shops out there that can do that for artists. And I think, you know, you already see that happening around the community where it's like people are starting to really take new media seriously and investing in high quality materials like that. I think what we're more interested in is how to help companies, how to help other artists take their own ideas about, you know, their personal love of opera and also their, you know, their daily engagement with the internet and combine them. We want to, you know, be a catalyst for other people thinking really actively about form in the digital space.
And to be able to connect those artists who are having those thoughts and having those intersections with opera in their daily lives to the communities around them too, that maybe don't have those entry points. And maybe their only entry point is an artist that they know from their hometown, that they saw on YouTube, that they went to high school with, that they met at a play, you know, like it's like interconnected in a way that we wouldn't be able to do on our own just by being able to put these artists' faces on the internet and get them into the opera house in that way, maybe. So I think it all sort of supports each other for sure.
Brilliant. So my question is, because the issue I encounters sometimes, which that's why I think you guys are the perfect example of how pop culture and opera culture can communicate very successfully, and that it doesn't mean dumbing down opera, right? Because that's the first reaction everyone has. And of course, we're all on the same page here that it doesn't have to be that way. That unfortunately, for many years, it might have been that way because people are trying to solve, marketing companies are trying to solve problems with band-aids, and it doesn't work that way. And as as tragic as everything that is happening right now is, it has really given an opportunity for things like this to happen. So I have two questions. First, I mean, I'm sure all these ideas were in your head way before the pandemic, but was this something that you were able to truly execute once the pandemic started? And what are your opinions on this maybe lack of communication that there's been between opera culture and pop culture?
Patricia? We're all trying to.
We're like a trash truck going by my house right now, so I'm gonna.
That's not
myself.
a metaphor. Definitely not a metaphor.
What's happening? Trash truck drives by. Like.
Yeah. So no, this is definitely something that we've all been frustrated with for years and years and years, and that's actually why we came together. I mean, we are centrally located around like a friendship. We were friends before, and we talked about the frustrations that we were having with things, with digital engagement, with company choices, with marketing band-aids. And it had been a long time coming, but the pandemic did sort of afford us the opportunity to say, okay, well, there's no excuse now. And we actually, all of the content that we have put out so far was filmed in a block. We quarantined together in a cabin in Brevard, North Carolina. And so we banked a bunch of content then, and we simultaneously did that and worked on building out the ideas. And it's all stuff like you say. I mean, we want the dialogue in between culture. That's how people interact with culture anyway, right? They feel very free to say, I hate this song, I hate this artist, I love this song, I love this artist, I hate this movie, I'm never going to watch another movie by this person. And we want people to have permission to, use opera in that way, to treat it like anything else in their life. So it's not some like high church art form where you have to sit and worship every single thing that comes out of everyone's mouth, which I think a lot of the times is the message that we get from companies who are doing the marketing band-aid thing, that you have to love it. It has to, it's just like Game of Thrones. It's just whatever. But we want to open up the conversation about it in a way that people feel comfortable interacting with it. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But opera is so huge. It's such a huge genre. There's something in it for everyone. There's a connection point for everyone. And, you can be interested in the costumes, you can be interested in the history, you can be interested in the singing, you can be interested in the plot, whatever it is for you, there's something there for you. And so, it's just sort of a refusal to accept that it's limited. I know I'm talking a lot. I've had a lot of coffee, but
no, this is great. That's why I have you have coffee.
I just woke up, so
I get too. It's all good.
Patricia's on the
West Coast.
I mean, I was just on a Zoom call this morning with the Atlanta Opera people, and they were talking about the Civic Auditorium in Atlanta and the Fox Theater in Atlanta. These huge cultural institutions were actually built in, when they were built in the 20s and the 30s for the Metropolitan Opera tour. And there are 4,000 seats in the Fox Theater, and it wasn't big enough for the popularity of the Metropolitan Opera in Atlanta. And so they had to build another building. So it's the same architect as the Met, and it's inspired by that. But I think that's just a driver, opera used to be such a driver of culture, and it started so many things in culture, like, I don't know, diva worship. It started everything, right? I mean, you can say that musical theater came from opera. You can say, which I love musical theater too. I don't mean to like do any superiority stuff, but yeah, it's just like everybody's old grandfather that we've forgotten about, you know what I mean? And it's still, without it, none of us would be here. None of us would be watching movies. None of us would be watching live streams. And, I mean, the Caruso records that sold 1 million copies in 1912 or whatever, I mean, opera was on the forefront of every major cultural innovation until recently.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't help that like people in very high positions of power in the operatic community are stepping in to tell everybody in press interviews, in their marketing pitches, hey, by the way, just so you all know, opera's dead. Opera's dying. We need your help. Opera's dead. Everything, no one wants it. It's terrible. Nobody like we need as much money as possible. That doesn't help with that. Like that doesn't help signal to a culture at large that we think we're worthy of space in your brain.
Yeah.
One more thing, I promise I will like let other people talk. I'm so sorry. I'm like amped. I haven't done a Zoom interview. I wanted to address what you said about dumbing it down. That is not a problem for anyone in culture. I mean, anyone. Think about there are millions of people who learned the language of Klingon from watching Star Trek because they just like it.
It's wacky.
Yeah, it's not it's not a problem with being too highbrow or too intellectual or too niche. People spend every single part of their days in niche markets. They've built their own realities around themselves. Think about the world creation of video games and, I mean, anything. So I think people are for sure smart enough and ready enough and niche enough and interested enough. It's just, I think it's a marketing problem on our part to that we haven't sold it well as an integral part of culture or something that you can feel comfortable liking. Yeah.
It's a lack of access points for people. So
I also think there's something to say that it takes a huge amount of time and energy and trust and free time to learn how to engage with culture and make high quality content. And I think the pandemic has like created this perfect time for that. And I do feel for these companies that they are needing to figure out quick fixes because they have an entire season to produce and they have donors to appease and all these things. So I think that the pandemic, as terrible as it has been for the performing arts, like it has enabled us to dedicate our time to this project. And I have a lot of gratitude for that. And I think we all do.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, here, I think this also opens the can of worms of funding, right? Especially with what's become very, very clear right now, that is the difference between funding here in the States versus Europe, let's say. And I saw it very clearly how with the cancellation of the entire Met season, I always like to observe the reactions of different kinds of people, right? And a lot of the reaction from Europeans came from a standpoint of, oh, what a rushed decision, or, oh, really, they can't, we found ways to do things, can't they find ways to do things? And of course, there can be a lot of opinions about that, but you can't ignore the fact that funding situations are very different here.
Yes.
So what are your I don't know if I want to say opinions, but comments that you might have about that, and how you think funding, economically speaking, how doing content like this or opera turning into more of a digital opera world can change that?
Oh my God, I feel like I have like a whole sermon prepared about this. I'm so sorry.
I'm ready for it.
You'll all take out your hymnals.
It's
I think that there's a lot of different ways to think about this, because the funding for opera was not really working before the pandemic, right? Like we're exclusively working on a model that says, hey, we're dying. Can 5 people give us a lot of money versus 5 million people giving us a little bit of money? And what we've proven in just in business and economics, and what we're seeing in like what we spend our money on now, is that the way more profitable model, and every company is trying to switch to this model, is getting a lot of people to give you a little bit of money to say like, yes, I value this. And even if I don't watch Disney Plus every day, I'll still pay $7 for it because I want access to what they do. That is not a story from my own life at all. I definitely but do you know what I mean? Like it's like saying, sure, for a regular person to say, I'll spend a tiny amount of money on this because I think it has value. That's something we've missed, because we've missed the opportunity to show a normal person who doesn't have multiple degrees in cultural arts or like advanced degrees in like law and medicine that give them the opportunity to be able to like run in the highest circles that like get to go to the opera.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
or a privileged family history of
right.
money and leisure.
Yeah. So like for the like working class American, like this doesn't even like it's not even in their realm of like things they see in a day. And why would it be? We're not going up. I literally, this is a story, this is like maybe already off topic in my sermon. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll circle back. I literally had this experience at the Metropolitan Opera in February. An audience member who was elderly leaned over to a woman who was maybe in her early 40s, who was like obviously like a working class New Yorker, who was like out with her friends, like very dressed up, like so excited to see Agrippina. And at first I was like, yes, girl, like they were like dressed, they were ready to go. And the older woman leaned over to her in the intermission and tapped her on the shoulder and said, I don't think opera's for you because it's very long and you're just moving a lot. I'm not joking. I witnessed this happen. I literally, Olivia Vogt was with me. If you guys know her, you can send her an email to corroborate. She was sitting right next to me. I almost pounced this woman. And the woman, and I was like very proud of the like younger woman. She was like, no, opera is for me. It's very long. It's 3 hours. I'm sorry that my shifting in my seat disturbs you so much.
Good. Good. Good.
But like, that's the kind of thing that we're up against. So it's not just the company that is not bothering to go after any other crowd except for the people who can write a check for $7 million today. It's also the fact that you're setting up a lot of other people to sit in the audience and make it feel exclusive and make it feel like it's only for a small group of people. As a society, we're past that, or we're trying to be past that. We're not past it yet, but we're trying really hard. Businesses are past that, but why are we not trying to be past that and trying to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible? And we do have equipment now. Like I was thinking about this actually when I was driving. I was listening to an old recording of 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵 singing Rossini's 𝗖µ𝗍𝗳𝗲, and I thought, you know what? I've never sat in a theater and listened to 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵 sing, but I feel like I have because I have all of these recordings of her. So when I hear people say stuff like, oh, it's not the same as going live, like I don't believe that. Like I can sit in my car and listen to a digital recording from 1960 and be moved the same way, or probably more than most live experiences I've been to recently because of just the way we market and do things and don't think. Okay, I'm done. Somebody else take over. Okay, I can't.
I think another way to say it is that, you know, there's a pretty simple supply and demand issue here. It's just not that much demand for opera. And that's a problem. I mean, it's a big problem. It's not something that's going to get solved in the pandemic or in the next 5 years even. You know, it's a rebuilding. You know, you have to, if you haven't done the work for 35 years or 40 years and you decide now's the time to start doing the work, it's going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, the funding model is problematic in many different ways. And it's also one of these things where it's very hard to talk about opera writ large because it exists so different. It exists differently depending on where you are, depending on the country, depending on community. And opera in America, I think, is very you know, it's a very financially challenged situation because you do have these mammoth institutions, and then you have everything that sort of exists on the micro scale, you know, but not a lot in the middle, you know, and that to me reads as like, well, there's not, you know, there isn't that actual, you know, demand from consumers for a, you know, a product of opera. And I don't, you know, who knows what the exact solution is, but you sort of, you have to you have to figure or logic that like experimentate. Part of what you do is like stop trying to like put that information out of view and like really engage with it, and then start experimenting to find, you know, we think of Ossia, you know, it's not necessarily like what you see now is, you know, what we had in the first iteration of it, but it's an idea that's constantly changing as we're, you know, as we're like learning the idea itself, you know, we're reacting to what doesn't work or what we think is good, or, you know, and, you know, taking ideas and growing them. And I think in general, you know, that sort of investment in experiment is a way to start solving the problem of getting people wanting, you know, opera, getting people connected to opera, so that there will be a demand, so that you can get 5 million people giving a little bit of money. You know, Disney did a great job at cementing itself in
Yeah.
And if they would like to contact us about putting Ossia on Disney Plus, our email is team@ossia.
No, that's true. But think about musical theater too, and like those people invest in shows, make money back, and it's an industry that is driven by profit, that increases the incentive for everybody to do a more amazing work, a more beautiful show, a more tightly wound experience or whatever. And we don't have that incentive in opera to make it actively always improving on a monetary incentive basis. And I think that's there's some problems with that model too, but I think if it were if we were making money, I think the competition for what we think of as excellence would be raising at all times also.
Well, there's like this aversion to risk, right? And unfortunately, to remain relevant, you have to take some risks. You have to be willing to change. You bring up the streaming platforms. They all change so fast. They've been adapting so fast. In the meantime, opera hasn't really changed.
Well, it hasn't had to.
Yeah. When you think about commissions, like I think about this a lot, where it's like, well, you know, you have to commission to keep having new works enter the repertoire. But the problem is everything in opera is so expensive that if you do it on any scale, there's like this incredible pressure for the new thing that you make to be good. And like, God forbid you commission somebody and they turn in something that's not good. But like, to actually make good things, you have to be willing to like really try new ideas and be risky, and actually be willing to risk it being bad. Because like, if you do if you write 100 pieces of music, probably 3 of them are going to be like truly excellent, and maybe 20 of those 100 will be good. But like, there's going to be a lot of failure in that, and failure is really important. You have to like take that and learn from it. And failure is so useful. Failure is this really necessary part of like an evolving form. And opera has like gotten itself into this vice grip of like being unwilling to actually take enough risk to do something good. So what it is, it's sort of constantly funding
safety,
continuity of what it is now. And this is problematic. So is the answer like stop, maybe like create a model where every single individual project isn't a $3 million show? Is it about scale? Is it about a completely like opening up the kinds of voices that get commissions? I mean, I think, yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways to do it. Look at the TV industry, the film industry, like even Broadway. Before a show makes it to Broadway, and even when they make it to Broadway, if they're not doing well, they close. And like there's a like pilot season, all of that, you know, you make a pilot. If it doesn't work, they don't pick it up. And I also hear a lot whenever I bring up new music, new operas. Some people are like, oh, well, but you know, how many of these operas are like sticking, you know? I'm like, well, they're not all gonna be brilliant, they're not all gonna stick, and you need to give it some time to see if it sticks. Like, it's just, I don't know, like I feel like people don't put themselves in other shoes, you know? If you go back to, I don't know, Mozart's time, you know, not everything that was being written then was stick. You need time to anyway, that's my big one.
Totally. Well, but and money versus time is a thing too, right? Like it takes so long for this for something to be built and the ideas to happen, and the casting's done 5 years in advance, and you know, and so I think we need to figure out a way to lighten up that, and so we can be like the streaming platform, so we can be like other relevant cultural institutions and move quickly through the space of what's happening in time and you know, around us in the world. It's hard to do that without a lot of money. You know, I mean, without an HBO budget, it's hard to say, okay, yeah, unlimited, yeah, do whatever you need to do in this next month to make this happen and be awesome.
But it's also hard to have an HBO budget when you aren't actively seeking out a community that cares about and invests in and wants to be a part of what you're doing too. So it's like this problem that's like cyclical. It's like, well, we don't have enough money to do what we need to do, and people don't care about it enough to give it the money to do what we need to do. So what do we need to build first? Is it the audience or the money? And it's kind of like both is the answer. So
and education.
Yeah, and education about it.
Because if you're trying to convince people once they're in their 20s that opera should be interesting, it might be a little late.
But I think it's also a matter of how you educate and what you bring to these new audiences. I mean, I've been a member of a few companies where this education that we were doing, I was really questioning, is this actually going to convince anybody to want to go to the opera? And the answer is absolutely no. Screaming at an 8-year-old, not even opera sometimes. So I really think that, and I really think that our generation's ideas and perspectives are so valuable during this time. Yeah, it has to be in the education, I agree.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a lack of curiosity, and I don't think there's a lack of, you know, free time and interest. I think you can I get in YouTube wormholes about stuff I don't know anything about for hours and hours and hours and hours. And so part of, you know, why we're hosting our platform on YouTube is in the hopes that someone will stumble across it and be like, I had no idea
what is this?
Yeah. And also I think another thing that we essentially believe is that people care about people, and that's part of the thing why, you know, I think why YouTube is so popular is because people like to see other people experience things, other people's thoughts about things. And so we want to be available to everyone as people to connect with them and say, this is what we as people do, not like you know, you have to love this and then you'll love us. You know, it's like, connect with us and let us show you part of our world.
Yes.
And I think there's education. I think there are education points at every level too. Like, I think there's a way to engage kids, and I think there's a way to engage people who are in their 20s. I think there's a way to engage people who are in their 50s who are now starting the retirement process and now have a lot of holes in their day and like things to do with their money that they like don't have anything, you know. We're missing opportunities to catch those people. We're missing opportunities.
People who are raising kids.
People who are raising kids. Absolutely. Like, we're not we're not doing what other industries do, which is go to the people and say like, okay, where are you? Where do you see us? How do you care about us? How can we make you care about us more? Instead, we're doing everything we can do to court very wealthy people to give us a little bit of money to just have just enough to squeeze out a season, pay artists as little as possible because fees are going down every single year, and this is going to make it worse. They're going to get lower, and you're going to be asked to do more for less now. So like, that's not acceptable for anybody anymore. Nobody's winning. The company's not winning. The audience is not winning. You can tell because they're not there. Well, they're winning, just not at the opera house. Like, they're doing something else. That, like,
they're winning because they're not there.
Yeah, they're winning because they've decided to spend the money that they work for every day on something that's actually entertaining to them or feels like it's been done with them in mind.
Yeah, we're offering, a lot of companies are offering one experience to a million groups of people, and a million groups of people can't have one experience and say that that is a common thing anymore, And so, sure, like, if you want to, I don't know, we've talked about this a lot, and this is our intellectual property if anyone's listening, but we,
all of this is being recorded, timestamp 12/40 October. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
We will see you in court.
We will. I've read one Wikipedia article about the I will see you there.
We have multiple lawyers on call.
True. Anyway, but like, section off the opera house, glass off the grand tier of the Met, let people bring their kids, put a playpen in, like let people choose their own experience, let them bring their food in, let them be on their phones, I don't know, put some movie theater
screens
for sure. Screens,
that's how we watch sports.
That's how we watch sports. I want to put my feet up in a chair though. I want to be zzz.
Also, while we're listing all of our intellectual property that if one person steals, we really truly will sue you. While we're listing, I hope nobody thinks that. If like you are watching this and you know me, I think you know how much I'm not joking. So like, I'm juiced. Anyway, no, but the other thing I think that we one of the things that keeps people out of the opera house a lot is knowing that, okay, well, I don't know I'm gonna like this, and I have to sit here for how many hours to decide? Do you know what I mean? I have to spend how much money for
the wine is how much at intermission?
BYOB.
And the terrible wine is how much?
Yeah, that they got out of like a big utility bottle of wine, or just what I mean?
A really shitty plastic cup.
Yeah.
Oh, we're allowed to swear here.
So they're like, so of course nobody wants to do that. So what I think, and this is a hot take, y'all, you ought to sell a ticket act by act so that people can decide, because how do we watch TV? We open up something on HBO and it says, do you want to continue to watch the next episode? And you get to decide whether you want to watch it now or you want to watch it later. You get to decide whether you want to sit there and be a piece of for 4 hours watching HBO, or if you want to get up and do something else. And people should have the option to do that with opera too. You should be able to say, I want to see the first act of Barber tonight, and maybe like next week we'll come back and do the second act. Why could you? Why could you not do that? And if you want to group them together, you get a discount for like grouping them together and seeing everything at once. It's simple things like that that blow my mind, that we have staffs full of people making full-time benefits and salaries and no one has thought of. That is what really chaps my ass. Can I say chaps my ass on this?
You can say whatever you want.
I'm so sorry. But that's what is crazy to me. There are people who are making full-time salaries and getting benefits and who are calling themselves marketing officers, social media managers, and all of these things. And yet not one person is thinking of very simple things like this or looking to any other industry in entertainment to say, what are people doing that works? Yeah. So my question
maybe they are, but they're not being approved. I mean, maybe these people are having these ideas and they're getting shut down.
Let us know in the comments. You can come work for Ossia. We'll let you do all your ideas. Put it in the comments,
And I think there's also a very big misconception that marketing, in opera at least, that marketing has to be convincing people of something, convincing people that they must like opera. And in what world do people appreciate it when someone's obnoxiously trying to sell them something or tell them something? And that's what I really appreciate about you guys, because I feel like it's how I see the world as well. I exist and I do interesting things, and people might be curious about it. And that's how it should be. And you need to trust that if you believe strongly in what you're doing, that other people are going to see it your way.
Yes.
It's just like acting. If you see it, other people will see it with you. You don't have to like shove it down their throats. And I think that's a big, big mistake. That happens a lot.
Totally
yeah,
agree.
and the fact that you don't have to, like, you would also never, about other entertainment, you would never say, well, I didn't like this movie, so I guess I don't like movies.
Yeah.
But people have like but we've trained people, and we've done this. It's like on us as an industry. We've said to people, well, like, if you like opera, you like all operas, darling.
How can you
know,
not like
that's-
Bohème?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. I'm Alyssa Martin. Hello, Alyssa Martin here. I am going to admit right now, I fucking hate Bohème. I hate Bohème so much. I hate it. Like, I have a master's degree in opera. I hate Bohème. Whatever. Okay. Like, but that's
Because there's no role for you.
She sings all the roles.
Racist theme. Clock is fake. Every role. Even the male ones, if I wanted to. We're gonna link to a video about
Hey, Alyssa Martin as Benoit, I think, is a hot take.
Yeah.
I do think there's another, like, it's good to acknowledge too that, like, I mean, people's way in is so radically different. It's what we've been saying over and over again. Like, I'm a director that, like, is not good at story. Like, I don't care about stories, you know, like, I don't know the plots, like, ever, you know. I mean, obviously, if I direct something, I know what the plot is, but my experience of sitting in a theater and, like, experiencing an opera is never about plot.
Yeah.
I'm never sitting there paying attention to the plot, going like, wow, you know, like, I wonder what happens next in the story. Like, you're looking at something else. You're looking at this sort of like the thing that happens in sports, right? Where you're like watching something not necessarily narratives, but like dramatic happen. Like, you're watching drama that's the drama of real time experience, you know? And like, I would say, like, when I was young, like, the thing that got me interested in opera was like listening to Pavarotti, like listening to like the way his voice worked, and being like a tenor in choir and being like, I want to learn how to sing above like F sharp, and like I'm gonna start listening to Pavarotti and just going like, what is this? And so you listen to Bohème because there's a high C in Bohème. It's like, wow. And like, through his voice and just trying to figure out what he's doing, like, then you start listening to this thing and you're like, oh my God, this is good, you know? And that, like, I think giving people all of these ways to experience opera in a way that is not like, you know, you know, opera is only sitting for this 3-hour event, and if you don't find your way in, too bad, you know. But to acknowledge that, like, you know, everybody has their own thing that they can grab onto, and that syncs up with the rest of their interests.
Mm-hmm. And if somehow, the other thing that I still can understand, if somehow the popular belief, the urban myth, is still that opera is so expensive, when there's been tickets at like €5 in Europe and like, I don't know, like $10, $20 here for a very long time, we're doing something really wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
really wrong.
But that's obviously
know.
something that no one's made an effort to try to dispel, because obviously it benefits someone somewhere for it to stay exclusive feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Broadway is so expensive, and people somehow in their heads still think that opera is so
Yes.
expensive. I'm like, what? Yeah.
People save, you know, money and for a year to take a trip to New York to see 2 Broadway shows, you know. I mean, I guess probably some people do that with opera too, but yeah, no, it's not I think that speaks more to the experience. Like, people feel like it is not fun. People feel like it is oppressive to walk into an opera house. You don't feel comfortable there. And so that's an easy way to write it off. You can say, well, I'm not going to pay money for that, to feel bad about myself next to an old lady who's mean to me the whole time.
And also, people pay, like, do you know how much Super Bowl tickets go for? Even in the cheap seats. I bought tickets in Phoenix. I bought tickets to the championship game for the like college basketball tournament. I was in the very top row, like the top of the nosebleeds. My ticket was $250
Yep.
for nosebleed seats.
Yeah.
But
College
people value
basketball.
that, so they'll pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, and so, so I guess that's like that sort of ends up being the like chicken or the egg question about like what's going on in opera right now. Are we not building an audience enough, or are we not building like funding enough? And the answer is yes. Like, because I think one informs the other. Like, people will give you money for things they care about.
Yeah.
So, I know we could probably like talk all day,
I
but
know, it feels like it, doesn't
I'm
it?
gonna like head towards the end. So you guys have a lot of just, your videos are gold. Like, I'm a huge fan. I'm not gonna lie. So I
Thank you.
encourage everyone to go to the YouTube channel and check it out. But I want to talk about one video in particular, Operaganda. Because it's very relevant and
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about it. So can you explain a little bit what this video is, how you came up with the idea, and what your thoughts are and your message might be for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, you know, oh, I just knocked my stand. But listen, these are new skills for us, right? And so I did the editing on this video. We brainstormed it together. I don't even know, you know, but that's op culture, right? Like vo sounds like something, you know, I saw that horrible, I mean, I will go on video record saying that I thought that inauguration thing was horrible. And the guy who sang at the
not inauguration.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I'm very politically informed. Anyway.
Wait, sorry.
That would be so scary.
Because a lot of people who are not
Yes, in
from the
States.
States might be watching. Can we like
Yeah.
explain a little more?
Yeah, so it was the convention that Trump did at the White House, and he had an opera singer, which doesn't mean anything anymore in the press, obviously, come and sing Nessun Dorma, and something else at the end of this convention, while like the family all like stood there and shifted awkwardly, and he was like singing from the balcony of the White House. And it's not very good. I mean, you know,
you watch it and decide for yourself.
You watch it and decide for yourself. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
After you watch the
in my humble opinion, and we're not interested in necessarily saying this is good and this is bad. We're interested in saying this is what's happening, and you know, you decide about it. So I'll stop. But it made me think that yeah, we as Americans have an opportunity to vote coming up soon. And so I wanted to, I was watching these voting videos. I was seeing voting stuff on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere. And yeah, I was hoping that maybe by doing like a humorous take on it, we might get some views on Ossia by kind of yeah, just making a funny little thing and adding the sound T to the vo. And so I've chose Americans and things that we could all, or specifically Americans for this, but we also tried to like distribute them. Like, we didn't do it with their permission. I don't know if I should say that or not, but we tried to like tag people and like see if they would distribute it for us. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, I think that's what we should do. We should tag everybody who's involved in that video. It's like Nicole 𝗄𝗏 and Nadine and Larry Brownlee and Joyce DiDonato and yeah, Sam Raimi. But I wanted a quick one. I wanted a quick digestible form that was fast-paced and funny, and hope relevant. That was our try. That was my try at that in that moment. that's really nice about building your own thing too, right? Like, I mean, we're not attached to a company, an opera company, so we're not pushing anyone's agenda but our own, and so we're following our own creative impulses. And as 4 different people, we have 4 different impulses and thoughts about things, and so it's nice to have the freedom to act as a group or act individually, and we collaborate on, you know, what do you think about this idea? Do you think I should do this? And of course, internal agreement about what gets put out for the most part. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, well, what I think also beyond what the video itself is saying, what I really appreciate, which is also like one of my big things right now, is that politics and the arts and culture are related.
Yeah.
You can't, they're not 2 separate things. Politics is part of society and culture, and it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I really appreciated this. And I'm definitely seeing a switch with this election in particular.
Yeah.
But as a non-American, that's something I notice a lot, that in this country, politics are everything that wants to be like shut down or be labeled as bad is labeled as politics, and like, oh, we don't talk about that. When as artists, as people in the arts, and you know, and politics is part of culture and society. So I think it's very important that people are speaking up. And
yeah, and I think one of the things that we tried to do in that video, and that we try to do in general, is like to label things with the disclaimer that, like, sure, you might be hearing one of our personal opinions on this, but as a whole, like, this is a community where like no opinion is off limits, really. Like, so it was a sort of non-partisan attempt, really, because that's sort of what everybody's very frustrated with, I think, in American politics, is how everything is like so deeply divided among a partisan line. And so, you know, we used a video from the Republican National Convention, not because we're trying to say like anything about how we do or don't vote, or how anyone should or shouldn't vote, because that's everybody's personal prerogative to do, that they have the right to do. So it was more about like, what do you think about this terrible opera? You know what I mean? Like, let's just agree this is not good art. like if we don't agree on anything else, let's agree that there's a lot of people a lot more qualified to be doing this right here, right now, hollering with fireworks behind them. I can name 6 right now that are not this guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I agree with you that it's about like being involved, and that's part of voting, is like that you're being involved in your community, you're having a say in like what's happening around you and what's happening to not just you, but other people in your community. And that's sort of what we're trying to build with op culture too, is saying like that the community is going to start to have some say over what happens in operatic culture. And that's sort of what we're missing, is that like feedback and that instant audience approval that you get from things like Broadway, that you get from things like sports. And that's, you do that by voting with your politics, you do that by being involved in community with the things you're interested in. It's all connected.
It is all connected. And part of the reluctance for, I think, artists to speak out is because we know that the people who support us and that support our institutions a lot of the times have differing political views, and based on whatever, based on money, and so nobody wants to like cross those lines. So that's a dangerous thing for opera, to be dependent on exorbitant, you know, the 5 millionaires, the 5 billionaires to support something. Yeah, so I guess it's also sort of a hope that what we're talking about is democratizing the opera, you know, and everybody has a place in it. There's something for everybody. We want to help you find it, or we want to help you find someone who can help you find it. And yeah.
And I think, and that doesn't, I mean, that's not to like villainize the people who do give money to opera, because I think that a lot of people who do give money to opera are giving it from like the kindest, most generous place. I really do. But like, I'm saying institutionally, it's not great to depend on that, because you get yourself in a real bind. as we can see now that we are in a real bind.
Yeah, and the same with boards, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like everything else, like there should be lots of different voices coming together to make decisions.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
And we're excited about the voices. Sorry, I just want to
No, please.
Plug it.
We have we've reached out to a lot of our friends and colleagues, and so you're going to start seeing a lot of people, a lot of new faces on Ossia. Like I mentioned earlier, we did our like trial run in the cabin with just ourselves during quarantine, but now that we're doing safety precautions to get other people in front of the camera, we can't wait to build out the community and to show off the personalities of the amazing people who sing and who we work with and who are friends with, and we want to be personality forward and thoughtful, and everyone gets to know everyone.
And I will just tell you as a hot take too, I've had conversations with a lot of the people that are going to be on, and like I've been stunned and like so empowered, like in that this idea is good, that everybody's been like, well, actually I have this really great idea for this program I want to do to reach out to like communities or like the like different nationalities and different like there. I don't want to give it away because I don't want to give away like who is coming on, because they're like very specific things and ideas that people have, but they're all really, really good. They're all really community minded, and they're all like very individual to like each artist's particular like vibe and what they're good at and what they love to sing and what they love to produce. It's real. Oh, cat. The cat.
He also loves opera.
He also likes Ossia. You can follow him on Instagram. He follows us. So cool.
He
What's
follows
the handle?
Yeah.
At Igor the Russian Blue.
He's gonna get more follows if we do today. Like I promise, like he will get more follows than Ossia does today. But all I was just saying is like everybody has amazing ideas, like superhero comparison. It's gonna be cool. So
We don't need the opera companies to do this. We can do it ourselves. We're building this for ourselves. Artists forward. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Guys,
we're in ourselves
you're
a couple of ambitious.
amazing. I just loved everything that we talked about. We need to wrap up. Is there anything else you guys would like to say? Would like to share with the group?
I think we did our like sort of semi self-conscious plugs along the way. I think. Anything else, guys?
Well, I guess it's just worth noting that you can go follow if you like have no idea who we are. You're so lucky. And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to have ruined this beautiful dream. But our website is 𝗖cie_presents.com. You can follow us at Ossia Op Culture on YouTube. I think we're just _Ossia_, but you have to do two underscores on either side because we're very cultured and artistic. So you can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. Just start typing in Ossia, and if it looks like us, just follow it.
If you've made it this far in this video, first of all, like you deserve.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Exactly.
I had to figure out a way to get my mom to follow us on YouTube.
Honestly, that's our first challenge. If everybody could get their own mother to follow them and Ossia, like honestly.
That's a good idea for a video. You can do a tutorial. How to follow us,
Yes.
It was
how
all
to
the cat,
subscribe.
actually. Yeah, that's a thought we've
Very
had.
smart.
We're
Very
working on
smart.
it.
Yeah.
Like my
Thank
mom,
you so much.
why don't I ever see your videos? I was like, well, do you go on YouTube? And she's like, no. And I was like, well,
No, you have to send them the link each time.
Every
Yeah,
time.
We're working on. Hey, but that's actually something. If you're like wondering why you don't get our videos, send us an email and we'll figure out how to get videos to you. Like that's part of. Honestly, look, everything's real hard. It's so hard to get videos to people. So we'll send one. Just send us an email. We'll send a video in the mail. We'll send a VHS.
Totally.
Honestly, that might work.
Good idea. That would work.
Redbox you. We'll get it to your nearest Redbox. And
Sorry, Eugenia. This is how most of our meetings.
Yeah,
are.
No,
we've totally
I-
taken over. The inmates are
love it.
running the asylum.